Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. It's been a while. It's good to be on. Good to see you, Chip. I feel like it's been years, but it's only been a couple days.
2 weeks.
But maybe it's been 2 weeks, man. But I'll tell you what, tonight we're going to talk about the fact that cryptocurrency, maybe even XRP, is the future of money. Maybe it even is future money. And there's a big question here. Does the Fed actually own XRP? Now, there's a lot of these naysayers that we've seen out there, like Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, that have dipped their toes into cryptocurrency. And in fact, they see cryptocurrency right now as a better investment than owning real estate. And that's right. That came from Jamie Dimon. So we're going to get into that one, Chip. A lot going on with the CFTC, the SEC, Pocahontas. There's a comparison here between Kwon and Bernie Madoff. I like that. We got some new stuff coming out of Ripple. Man, there's a lot. We're even going to go into those that are behind the Zum wallet. So,
Yeah,
man,
what an
what do you
action-packed
think?
show. Stay tuned,
Man.
guys. Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Well, Jeff, I have
Oh,
to say
boy.
it is great to be back together because it was like, oh, you couldn't do the show, then I could do the show, and then we were both doing it solo, so somebody was covering. And yes,
Yeah,
the
awesome.
boys are back. We are back, and we are here live with you. And if you're on the replay, we're here with you on the replay as well. I wanted to show this, Jeff, because you kind of teased this a little bit in the opener, but let's jump right into this because this is something that XRP Boy, real XRP Boy, which is @boy_XRP, tweeted this out. And of course, I went over on Quora and found it. But it said, now someone put this on Quora. If you guys don't know Quora is a way, it's like you put questions out there and people can answer the questions. And David Schwartz is actually fairly active on Quora. And somebody put this up there. It said, since XRP is working alongside the established financial system, is it plausible that the U.S. Federal Reserve may take ownership of XRP and the Ripple network becoming XRP kind of digital USD? And it's interesting, Jeff, because this has come up so much, even in the chat over the months, over the years, people, bringing this up. It's come up on other YouTubers' videos. It's something we've discussed pretty often. And this was answered a year ago, but again, I hadn't seen it. And the author has 10.6 thousand answers and 15 million answer views. That's incredible, Jeff. Think about that.
It really is. So XRP, a kind of digital USD. It's an interesting title, kind of diving right into it. And man, there's so much going on, like you'd mentioned. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation over this fact that is or are we at a point where government agency are looking at some of these digital assets and trying to figure out a way to maybe take a little bit more control over those digital assets, maybe get a little bit of long-term benefit off those digital assets, or maybe it's the fact that they realize that this is future money and they don't want the public to have control over the sovereignty of money. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, what it really says and what somebody's really thinking about here is the value. There is serious value there, and I think I mean, and if we look at the thumbnail, XRP is new money. You think about that, it really is, because it has a value, it has a use case, and so if we're looking at the way the UK looks at this, it ticks two of those boxes: that it has a use case and it also is a currency. So it really is the new money. And then so David Schwartz gets into it and says, well, and referring to the Federal Reserve could take possession of Ripple's private network, but there's really no way they could take possession of XRP or the XRP ledger. Jeff, why is that? Why couldn't they take possession of XRP or the ledger?
Yeah, so how do you take control of something that's decentralized? But more than that, Chip, how do you take control of something that is decentralized on an international scale?
Right.
Unless they go in and they try to figure out a way that they can take possession of the escrow of the 55 or 50 billion, whatever's left in that escrow account. But then you run into the exact same problems.
Right. But there's also a percentage of that has rules about how that Is it possible? Yeah. And given what's happened over the last 2 years, I would say almost anything is possible, right? An invasion from another planet, the moon crashing into the sun. Who knows? I mean, at this point, I think it's all possible. He goes on to say that they could create their own copy of the system, just as they could with any other public ledger system, but then they'd have to compete with systems like Bitcoin and the XRP ledger. If the value of these systems comes from their decentralization, then why would people want to use one owned by the Federal Reserve? Now, Jeff, what are your thoughts about that? Because that right there is an interesting question.
It really is an interesting question. And so there's a little bit of a dichotomy here, because think about it from a perspective of those that are into the crypto space, right? Those, if they're looking at Bitcoin, they're looking at Ethereum, they're looking at even XLM, let's say they go to Stellar, looking at, I don't know, one of the other, thousands of assets out there, the ledgers, and say, hey, you know what? We want to find a way to separate out of the this control mechanism of a non-government entity, or here's the other side of it, is the rest of the public. So you have those that are saying, hey, you know what, we want to get away from the banks, and we think we can do it through private means, and that the whole concept of where Bitcoin started. And then you have the other group within the public that says, hey, you know what, we love this idea of digital asset, but we like the protection of it being controlled and and operated by the Federal Reserve and overseen somehow through government dictate.
Exactly. And I wanted to say shout out to Sooner and Swiffle for the super sticker. Really appreciate that, guys. And there's a couple other comments I want to get your thoughts on, Jeff. Like this one here from Jim D. He said, well, the Fed Treasury can set up their own private trust network, but cannot change the total coinage count like do that on a whim with their junk fiat Ponzi scheme. Just print some more.
And that's exactly, that's a really solid point from Jim D. And by the way, Jim D is a brand new member of On the Chain. Look at that, with his brand new shiny membership there.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So that's great. But that's a really solid point, because here's one where you see that the government through the Federal Reserve printing our money value into obscurity, as also spending and printing direct causation of rampant inflation. So here you have an issue, right? So to his point, this junk fiat Ponzi scheme is what we're starting to see that it's kind of spun into. But if they take over, let's say the XRPL, that's it. They're kind of limited in the total count of XRP. Same thing with Bitcoin. You take control of the Bitcoin, but you know what? With each one of these assets, you can look at the value down to a decimal point.
Right.
So it's not that they can't keep printing, but the value's there. And if you're going to break it down to a decimal point, does one XRP equal $1, or does one, 0.0001 of a drop or something like that equal $1? How do you factor that in? And same thing with a Bitcoin. You get to, point millionth of a Bitcoin.
Well, Captain Redbeard says just burn it. I think he's referring to the escrow. So he's maybe referring to that's something the escrow could do. Jim D also says Ripple could hold the Fed hostage by burning the escrow. They could also license a new Fed coin context using Ripple software license. That's all possible, but I do believe there are rules. But because of the validators, because of the way they release from the escrow $1 million per month, I believe that they'd have to put an amendment to the validators to get 80% consensus on it before moving forward. So I don't think it's as easy as we push a button. The Fed pushes a button and prints money. That's pretty easy. So remember that, what was that a couple years ago, Jeff? They had that big easy button. I think everyone had one of those at one point. You just clicked it and it said that was easy.
Solves problems. But no, you're right with that. On the escrow, they can't just step in and say, hey, we want you to burn the escrow, or we're taking control of the escrow, through the mechanism. They would have to have the validators vote on the change and also vote on the burning of it. So Ripple isn't in control of whether or not they're going to burn it or not. But the question then is, if as part of the release of the escrow, they're releasing 1 billion every single month, and then the unused portion is then rolled over to the 55th month, and it keeps going that way. Always put at the end, and it continues. So the question is then, can the Fed, and I don't know the answer to this one, but can the Fed come in through some form of dictate and then take that release? Is there a way for them to nationalize that 1 billion release? They say, okay, 1 billion is released, we're going to take it.
Yeah, but I mean, see, I don't under what kind of law? I mean, there are still laws in that, right? You can't have a complete
There are laws on the
takeover.
books. Right.
Well, I mean, but still, I mean, you can't have the government go into a private company and just take it. Otherwise, that starts looking like something from the 1930s, early 1940s that happened and it looked like a little bit like what happened in Venezuela, where all the private companies were the government came in and took it over, and it happened in Cuba and it happened in other places. Can it happen? It's happened plenty of times before. It's happened in Germany as well. So I just don't know under what scenario that would look like. Not saying it couldn't happen, but it's a possibility. Look at this here. Gary Morgan says, "Hey guys, first time listener, first time commenter." Okay, it's the first time we've ever had that. You remember, like on the talk radio days, first time listener, first time caller. This time's first commenter. Question: do you think there could be a revaluation of gold in our future?
Well, Chip.
Well, I would just, I honestly think that because of the paper, I believe that gold has been suppressed over the years. I mean, it honestly should be somewhere between it's somewhere around the price of what Bitcoin should be, $35,000, maybe upwards of $40,000. And if you think about it, Bitcoin is decentralized, and in a way, so is gold. Think about it. Anybody can mine it. I mean, sure, there's permits and but you can go dig in the ground and find it. Anybody can, with some software and hardware, can go ahead and mine Bitcoin. Truly, if you owned your piece of land and you found gold on it, you can mine your own gold. In a way, it's somewhat decentralized, although centralization comes in when you have all the countries and their central banks purchasing it. But honestly, going back to the question, I do think it's been artificially suppressed. I think it's worth way more than that's 1,800 to 2,000. We go back 10 years ago, 10 years ago, it was $1,100. It's been artificially suppressed. And look who's been loading up on all the gold, Jeff. Look around the world. We did that one graph of all the countries and central banks that have been loading up on gold, especially the last 3 to 5 years. What do you think about that question?
No, I think about that. So yeah, I think that's a really solid, concern. Can that happen? Like you said, has it been suppressed? It probably has been. But right now we're also looking at a changeover of how the economies are going to be structured. Is gold going to maintain the value, or is that value then going to be moved into crypto? Now, does crypto then give governments more control, or does it give the people more control? What do we want in the end? Because it does come down, at least in the United States, it still comes down to we the people. I don't, know about how that's going to be relevant in other countries as they're still fighting. But I'll tell you when the government does come in and make and dictate, who gets to own what, and that's if they do something with the 2A. But if 2A stays firmly in place to protect 1A and the rest of the Bill of Rights, then you know what that means. Then then we have a safe, fair, country for we the people. And I start thinking that all of this is interrelated, one to another, whether it's gold or crypto or what we're starting to see right now. Very relevant to see all the powers that be, poking their heads out of the ground, attacking 2A.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is just like anything, there's nothing that suspends the Constitution, right? There's nothing that says, shall not be infringed is there for a reason. You can sit there and try to pick it apart any way you want, but that's pretty solid. Shall not be infringed, and that's pretty much, you're right. It all is kind of 2A, 1A conversation, but really that's our contract with the government. That's we the people. That's our contract. That's our safeguard. And guess what? You know what else doesn't suspend it? The viruses don't suspend it. Nothing suspends that basic contract of we the people. So I know we kind of get a little, but anyway, but Butthead wants to know, did XRP win yet? Did XRP win yet? I read that. I was like, I don't know, Jeff. Did it win yet? Are we there?
I hope it has won. We're right there. It's very close. And Jim D is saying XRP, like most all crypto, can be declared a public good owned collectively by we the people.
We
That's
the
interesting.
people. Yeah, we the people. And just getting back to this, I know we kind of got off track a little bit, but I think it's great to hear from the community, the OTC family. It's always good to see that. But I just wanted to finish up with this, that David Schwartz finishes it up on the comments saying the design of public blockchain systems makes a lot of engineering sacrifices precisely to ensure that they can't be taken over or censored. They have no administrative functions. It wouldn't make sense to take over an existing system and completely destroy its value proposition. Unless, Jeff, of course, if there's one of those out there that's the big brand name, Bitcoin, and that is a threat to all central banks, because it's interesting to see how you see El Salvador leading the way and other countries getting down with the whole Bitcoin as currency. And this isn't a conversation about what you think about Bitcoin or other digital assets. This is a conversation of digital assets in the forefront, and also creating that sort of threat. Because if you say that it's a currency, then guess what follows? Other digital assets are to follow, and other ones that have different use cases and properties come after that. So as we start seeing more countries adopt the whole idea of Bitcoin being a currency, it's basically the carte blanche stamp for everything that's digital asset also potentially being a currency. What do you think about that?
I think, to elaborate on that, I think Alchemist actually, puts another, point on the table here. XRP may be a public good, but it's a personal burden. And so think about that and try to digest that concept of,
There's a lot going on there, Jeff. That's a lot to think about on Sunday night.
That really is, but think about everything that's going into this idea, this notion. I mean, I'm sure, you look at it from the short-term perspective and the angst of watching the assets up, kind of go up and down. We see the bull market, bear market, and you're holding on, for dear life, throughout this whole process, especially if you were early to the game. We're still early, or say early. We're still
Super
early to the
Jeff.
game, super early, but especially through that 2017, 2018 ride and then beyond. But that same roller coaster was taking place a little bit before that. The roller coaster always departs a little bit higher each time, but that to me is also the personal burden of it. And then there's more, because if we're starting to see a complete changeover, of our financial technologies. So think about that also, that there is a personal responsibility that is starting to take place as well. So is crypto, a public good, for people all over the world? Chip, we talk about that people are having opportunities for the first time ever to better their lives and take advantage of this crypto space. And then you see some of the bigger players, some of the politicians, and and big players within the financial institutions that are looking at people finally getting a foothold to take personal responsibility, to take that burden of personal responsibility onto themselves. And we're seeing some resistance and pushback. So to me, that's the personal burden. Chip.
I'm going to go with what you just said, Jeff. That's a lot to unpack right there. I actually think that was I think you answered that beautifully. Look at this right here. So I just went over to David Schwartz's profile on Quora, and I just started scrolling down the list and refreshing my page from time to time. But look at this, Jeff. Honestly, this is something right here. Look at how fast that's going by, Jeff. Look at that. Just thousands of answers right there. It's insane.
Man.
It doesn't end. It's incredible.
That's crazy. They keep pinging.
What justifies Bitcoin having value aside from circular reasoning that you'll have to be able to sell Bitcoin? So there's a lot going on there. How many did we say that he had? I'm trying to just scroll to the top here, but I think he had 11,400 answers.
Wow.
11,400 answers and 15
Comments?
million total. He only had 2 posts. 13 questions that he asked himself. Let's see what those questions are. Impressive. If a centaur wore pants, would the waist be above their front legs or between their front and back legs? Okay. What is a rule when a contradiction is allowed at the end of a sentence? You can say, I'm happy, but he isn't, but not he's not as happy as I'm. What's the rule? These are the questions he really wants to know. I don't even know if there's a lot of answers. It's incredible, man. I mean, holy cow, Jeff. That's a lot going on there. But look at this.
You know what's an interesting question, though, here from Matt? Hey, Jeff and Chip, love the show. In your honest opinion, you guys think real crypto regulations happen by end of year 22? Chip?
Well, let me say this. I do see, first of all, we have a big election coming up here in the United States, and that is in November, early November. But that Congress is not sworn in until January. So what we're talking about is the same crew that's in there today would still be in there by December 31st, 2022. Now, I know Cynthia Lomas has a co-sponsor who's a Democrat. She's a Republican, but I still haven't seen her roll that out. But I do think that if the Dems were to look at what resonates with people, I know right now there's a lot of social causes that they're engaged with right now, but if they could look at something else, this potentially could be something. But I just think there's too many other distractions going on right now at the moment. But I do think that when the new Congress is, first of all, we got to have the election, right? We pretty much kind of think we know what's going to happen. If we go by history, Jeff, we know what generally happens, because it's usually fail-safe. That's why they call it the midterm. It's usually midterm of the president, and whoever the president is, the party, usually the other party rolls back. So there's always been this sort of this tug and pull. Your thoughts?
I'm going to go with what you just said.
It's right. I mean, what else can you say about it? We don't know. We have to see what's going to happen. But let me throw this up here. This kind of caught us both by off guard. We were talking on the pre-show here, and the CFTC commissioner advises people to view new crypto tokens as lottery tickets. Okay, so this is right.
I win.
I mean, this is crazy, right? So
we all win.
We
all have winning lottery tickets.
Yes, we're all winners.
He's on something here. We're
You're
all
winners. Yeah, so I mean, more people are going to win the lottery than in the history of the lottery in any country. In the wake of the Terra Coin's collapse, Commodity Future Trading Commissioner Caroline Pham, remember her and Hester Peirce had this. They did an opinion piece in The Hill. We talked about in the last show. Speaking during an interview with the CNBC on May 27th, she stressed that most crypto projects lack customer disclosures, and investors end up buying believing they're guaranteed to strike rich. And her quote was, if people started to think about some of these really novel crypto tokens as frankly as lottery tickets, when you go and buy a lottery ticket, you might strike it big, you might get rich quick, but then you might not. I don't know.
What does that even mean? I mean, this is coming from somebody from the CFTC. How do you make a statement like that?
It's bizarre, Jeff.
It's a very bizarre, question, because you can say or comment. You can say the exact same thing about investing in stock.
Right.
Hey, you know what? I'm buying into this stock, and I think I'm going to get rich off of this stock.
Especially the penny stocks, Jeff. How many penny stock companies go belly up? And it's, to me, it's a little bit unbecoming of a CFTC commissioner, especially when they regulate commodities. That's what they're, and really all of, I would say 90% of crypto digital assets should fall under the realm of that regulator, not the SEC, because they're regulating securities. But it's a little bit, I don't know, it seems like a little junior of an answer to me. It's a little bit ridiculous.
As Matt saying, irresponsible.
There you go. Irresponsible.
Matt was saying comparing gambling to digital asset innovation is just irresponsible. It is irresponsible, and it's the same concept. If we would have said back in the 90s, investing in these tech stock, in these web internet stocks, whatever, is just irresponsible.
You would never hear that.
Investing in these new tech stocks, Chip, just irresponsible.
Just irresponsible. I mean, it's like you're buying a lottery ticket, Jeff, because the earnings, and then You know, if you look at you want to look at the public disclosures, look at any company that's having a pretty decent year. Look at the debt that they're carrying.
Yep.
Look at the money in, and look. I mean, you look at that. If you go to that like disclosure, and you instantly say to yourself, "I would never invest in a company." You're like, "Oh, but the stock is up 20%. How is it possible?" It's like they're carrying
Yep.
massive amounts of debt. Especially when you look at the risk disclosure. And you're still like, oh, that's irresponsible. Don't invest in Tesla.
So the thing is, I mean, you know, to break it down to those types of terms, you know, to compare it to a lottery ticket, you know, I agree with Matt, you know, it's just irresponsible. But from her perspective, to say that you have to treat it like a lottery ticket is telling people that they are being irresponsible with their investment, irresponsible with their money. Hey, you know what? Go invest in General Motors when it was on its way down. Go invest in General Electric when it was on its way down. You
Well,
know,
Kathy Wood.
I mean, there's a lot of stocks out there that, you know, the big ones, you know, GE, you know, especially look what happened to GE. Look what happened to a lot of these big stocks. You know, so what do you have to say? I mean, you know, everything that you do, there's a little bit of risk, but
Of course.
the point that she's saying that maybe, you know, should have been clarified a little better, and others have said it, that there's a good probability chance that more than 95% of the crypto companies will be gone at the end of this thing. You know, similar to like pets.com, you know, there were, you know, quite a few in the .com era that people invested their money strictly because it had a .com. And you were just alluding to that, you know, but they weren't looking at the viability of the product, because you know, many of those .coms during that era, people invest again because it was a .com, not because it had a product, not because its product was viable. And again, you know, moving into this era of the crypto, you know, investment opportunity and innovation within this new tech class, we're going to have to take and be smart with what we invest in, right? So if you're looking and chasing every last meme coin, hoping that it blows up like Doge did in that one short period of time, you know, or you're going after every NFT because you think it's going to blow up, you know, and become huge, well, you know, that becomes, you know, then you're kind of chasing the dream, but most of those things don't have value, you know. And so I think we're at that point. We have to go back to, does the company actually solve a problem? Is there a reason, a rational reason as to why this crypto project exists, Chip? You know, is it a problem solver, or is it a solution in search of a problem?
Yeah, she had another comment, but we're going to go past that just because of the time constraints. We're going to just blow past that comment, but this was interesting. Dan Held put this up. JP Morgan in 2017, Bitcoin's a fraud that will eventually blow up. That was Jamie Dimon. And he also said that, well, I think it was his daughter, a daughter or son that was investing in Bitcoin. It was like, they're going to be disowned from the family. So here's JP Morgan just this week, which said, Bitcoin is now our preferred alternative asset. How have the tables turned? But of course, when you come out and you have that kind of the strength, that to be able to move a market and come out and say it, you know, somebody like Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and comes out and says, hey, this is a fraud, don't waste your time. And all of a sudden the price tanks a little bit. You don't think they were loading up in the background, do you, Jeff? You don't think they were like collectively just loading up every time they hit a dip? And now here they're saying it's bad. Then all of a sudden they come around.
There was some of that. Yeah, there definitely was. So there was something going on, you know, but you look at a lot of the investment, you know, houses out there, and they don't necessarily buy when it's early. They buy when it's right for them. You know, they look for those buy-in points. So you know, and to your point, when do they start buying into this thing? When do they now see it as a preferred and their alternative asset is against stocks and bonds? So JP Morgan stocks and bonds are number one, and then typically their alternative asset would have real estate and other things, and now they're saying it's crypto.
And look at this, John Deaton.
Interesting.
Yeah, John Deaton says this sums up Jamie Dimon's credibility. Wasn't he supposed to fire anyone peddling Bitcoin? That was the other thing. If you worked for JP Morgan, if you were caught, Jeff, if they caught wind that you were investing or buying Bitcoin, that was it. You're done. You were out. But now it's a better investment than owning real estate. I'd really love to know the date of Dimon's first purchase of Bitcoin. Now that's,
you know what, Chip, I want to know more than that. I want to know what Gary Gensler's response to JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, all those guys. I want to know what his response is now, or all these naysayers that are running around there like Janet Yellen and Pocahontas and the rest. What do they now say? How about Bank of America? They still don't want to dip their toe in. What does Bank of America say to JP Morgan when they say it's their number one alternative asset?
Well, there it is right there, Jeff. So funny you should say that. Bank of America CEO he dismisses, but he basically disses crypto, right? And this was interview. This was Brian Moynihan, who's the CEO of Bank of America, when he was asked on a Yahoo Finance interview, he said he was in no rush to dip its toes into cryptocurrency. We're not missing on anything. We're not driving payments through the roof, Moynihan said. But funny thing enough is Bank of America is a Ripple partner. So, I mean, can you believe anything that comes out of these, what they would say? And maybe he's a little bit disconnected from what's actually happening in the company, not in the sense that he doesn't know, but again, it goes back to that whole statement of, okay, yeah, well, maybe we're working with Ripple and we're leveraging cross-border payments, and you don't have to know how that happens. You have to know that we do it and do it cheaply, which is
I think Jim D is, hitting it here, is that, B of A is pro crypto. I think that article kind of shows what they're saying is they're not ready to invest in crypto, but they did recognize the cross-border payment. They recognize the value of what it brings. But there was a statement on there just said based on their stringent policies, they can't invest in a newer technology class like that. So you'd have to then see and really make a determination. Are there other companies, startups that they've invested in, or maybe they haven't because they're too new? Did they invest in Tesla when it was in early days? Or does Bank of America stay out of those kind of assets like he mentioned in the article?
Well, they're risk adverse. I mean, why would a bank, especially I think they're number 1 or 2 in the U.S., why would they go on and take on risk? I mean, Michael Saylor can do it. He runs his company, but again, when you're running a public company such as a bank, and you have different fiduciary responsibility, it's a very different fiduciary. He's right in the sense. I think a lot of people didn't. I think you nailed that too, Jeff. Is like a lot of people miss that. He's just saying they're not going to be out there with we've just spent $1 billion on Bitcoin, because no, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Not to mention they're not going to use it potentially.
Yep.
Look at this one, Jeff. Daily Wire said Feds confirmed there's an investigation into Elon Musk, and John Deaton wrote this: the SEC is investigating Elon Musk again. How about the referral from Empower US? Maybe start holding the SEC personnel to the same basic ethical standards imposed by the criminal conflict laws. Lead by example. And he's right that there was a referral for the improprieties that was referred to the I forget what the person who regulates the SEC. I forget what they're called. But yeah, the Empower has that referral. What's going on with that referral? Is that happening? Is that the fox watching the hen house? Like, nothing to see here. Everything looks good. Yeah, but the fox is eating all the chickens. I don't see a thing. Nobody knows anything, Jeff. Looks good to me. I don't see anything. It's all because. And then
now that Yeet's here, we can get started.
What's up,
now. Yeet.
You can always rewind, man. You can always rewind and see the rest of it. Look at this. So, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she put this tweet out: nearly 40% of people with student debt never received a degree. Well, that's kind of odd, Jeff. They worked hard. They did what they were supposed to do. No, what you're supposed to do is graduate, Jeff. I'm sorry. And it's okay if you don't get around to it. And there's things that happen.
Life happens.
Life happens to people, and people start stuff, and sometimes it takes them 30 years. I saw a football player the other day, an ex-pro athlete that finally finished his degree. It takes time. Life happens. But 40%?
Canceling student debt will help working people. You know what will help working people is they need to stop emphasizing, first of all, the value of a degree. That's number one. They've taken away resources for people to educate themselves while in high school, to take on careers that, are more, hand and body oriented, maybe mechanics or, trades, right? Mechanics, electrician, plumber, building. How are we going to do without, there's people that are very well suited for those types of jobs. Every electrician I know, that the good ones are really amazing what they do. Plumbers, I can't, I'm not, I don't do my own plumbing because not only do I not know how to do it, but if I tried to
I
do
did
it, it's
this
not going to
weekend,
end
Jeff.
well. Same thing
I
with
did this weekend.
electrical, right?
It
And look what happens, right?
worked out
So
well, though.
thing is, there's money to be made in those trades, and some people are just better at that. So getting a 4-year degree isn't the end all be all, number one. Number two, and this goes back to the debt, the fact that those loans are not cancelable through, and they're not, you can't discharge them through bankruptcy because the government basically says, hey, you've got that loan, you're now obligated regardless to pay off that loan. I think it's the only loan that can't be discharged, or one of the only ones that can't be discharged through bankruptcy. Therefore, the schools understand that. Therefore, those lending money understand that. They give money to people freely. And then you go to school, and the schools are overcharging and increasing tuition at rapid rates because they know they're guaranteed to get the money. So now you want to cancel the debt? All that is a transfer of wealth to these schools, to these Ivy League towers with professors that never lived and worked an actual honest day of their life. Not to offend any professors that might be listening, but that's my opinion, Chip.
I can't say that I don't disagree with that, but Jeff, I have to take umbrage with what's going on here with this whole thing. I mean, here, let me just do this. I fixed the tweet, by the way. I just wanted to show you this. Hang on a second. You know what, Will? By the way, I fixed her tweet, and you know what will help working people? Passing crypto legislation will help working people.
Well,
that's what she should have put out there. That was what it should have been. But passing crypto legislation will help working people. When working people see that there is, it costs almost twice as much as it did to fill their tank, their pay increases or lack thereof, or not keeping up with inflation. Where are they going to put any value that they have? Or if they have a little tiny investment, let's say they invest $10 a week, where's that going to go? Into fiat currency? That's what it should have said. Passing crypto legislation will help working people. And I love how you can just
look at that. It says it. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
It says it right there. I just fixed it. See, it says I fixed it and it's not correct. So, it's like
passing. That will help working people. That is 100%. Give people an opportunity to invest. Come on.
Yeah. And you know what? And why is the government all over the world become a nanny state? Why is it that you're so much smarter than us, and you're going to tell us how to live our lives, and you're going to tell us what is good for us? Hey, how about we get up every day? Like I tell my wife, I get my fat ass up every day, and I work and I work and I work, and you provide for your family. This is the kind of things you do. You just do this stuff. But it's like, is there some mystery force out there called the government? They're going to tell me, well, hey, you can't be trusted. You now need to be an accredited investor. You want to be, you want to have, you want to make money, make value on your crypto. You want to earn yield in your crypto. Sorry, you got to be. What is this accredited investor stuff? So this is the kind of stuff that these politicians
about you.
These politicians get in there. This is my favorite comment by Darren. XRP Darren said, how about you do something productive and tell your dog Gensler to settle with Ripple? I like that comment. That's a perfect comment right there. Yeah, why don't you do something like that, or pass some legislation? And everyone's like, oh, it's so important. We have to do it. We have both sides of the aisle. And they do nothing, Jeff. Nothing.
Brian here saying, so true. I'm a mover. I own and operate my own small labor-only service. I accept most cryptos as a form of payment. I've been paid in Bitcoin, XRP, Zcash, and more. Best choice ever. And there you go. I mean, there's tons and tons of opportunities out there. It just, man, it sickens me when you see these politicians out there constantly corrupting, and they're not doing the will of the people any longer. They're out there to enrich themselves. And it's so obvious. They're always trying to score, political points. And it's disgusting at this point, Chip. It's we the people, and it's all about, at this point, the crypto and what crypto has been doing for people on a global scale. Look at the impact. They can't even pass some form of regulatory clarity, Chip. What is up with that? The rest of the world is lightning years ahead of us.
Yeah, I like this. This is an account that I like to follow. And this is like so spot on. This is Fintwit. It said in 2009, Bernie Madoff lost investors $60 billion. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison. In 2022, Kwon lost investors $60 billion after Luna collapsed to zero. He then created Luna 2. I'm thinking Luna 3 might be in the future if Luna 2 keeps doing what it's doing. And yeah, by the way, I try to digest a little bit of how that airdrop is going to work, and it's very complicated and it doesn't make a lot of sense because it doesn't make, to me, it doesn't make people whole. It doesn't even get anywhere close to that. So especially people that got in after the fact, like say someone threw $30 in there and then buying 200,000 or 400,000 Luna, they get 0.0000. And Kwon was out there on Twitter saying, "Oh yeah. If you bought post crash, you're going to get something." Yeah, but it's going to be next to nothing. I mean, next to nothing.
Hey, Chip, I'm seeing a lot of commentary in here about XDC. Who has XDC? Uphold and Bitrue. Man, next show we're gonna have to talk a little bit about Zinfin. See what's going on with Zinfin. I think that could be really interesting. It's down a bit. It did hit. It seemed to have had some nice momentum. It would be good to follow up with that. Uria's talking about IOTA, and I was looking back. I remember IOTA. Back in the heyday when it went over $5. I was in around 40-50 cents, out in that $4 range. That was a nice one. It never really. I guess it kind of came back a little bit. It was in the $2.30, but XDC, I'm really interested also. I'm looking at some of the commentary here. I'm interested to see where some of these projects are at this point while the market is red, and see more on the project side because July 4th is a month away. So we'll be talking about Flare at that point.
That's right.
XDC, Zinfin.
Yeah, and also XDC too. I mean, I think its high was 17 cents. So I mean, it should easily blow past that, and especially a lot of look. It's just everything's down right now. So there's a lot of great buys out there. Of course, that's not a financial advice, but some people like to buy when the price is low. Other people like to buy when they see it going up because it's proof of the concept of like, oh, okay, this is real. As I know a lot of people that friends of mine had talked to for years that got in XRP after it blew past the 140, 150, 160, because they're like, oh, this is real. I'm actually going to be able to purchase this. And then I get a text from a buddy the other day and he's like, XRP to the moon. And I know there's a lot of, but it was like, he's like, I don't care. I'm going to hold it to when it goes to zero. I'm like, that's unlikely. But if it was likely, and if it did get to 0.006, I am sure that a lot of people would be like, holy crap, let's get in on this. Where other people, you don't do panic selling. That's the other thing. And if you've been in the stock market, you've engaged there too, and you kind of know what's going on. Companies, we kind of look at projects very similar to the way we look at stocks. You look at the health of the company, you look at the risk, how risk adverse they are. You look at the how much debt they're carrying. What are they investing in? So you can see some things. Now you don't see everything. You can see their balance sheet, see what they're doing. We look at projects the same way. What are they doing? Are they solving problems? You gotta be able to figure out how that works. And all I know is that in this short period of time, Jeff, and I can't believe we're out of time already. It's incredible. We've already blown past our time here. But yeah, that's something we're going to have to get into. But I think there's a lot of really good projects out there. I think XTC is one of them, and it does have a good use case. That's all I have.
It's exciting, man. It's exciting. I'm seeing what's going on right now with these lows, but XTC is up 9.7% right now, so that's going to be an interesting one. We got to get back in and really look at some of what's going on with some of these projects. So next time we get on, we're going to really dig into looking at some of these projects.
Yeah. By the way, Jeff, I just wanted to close with one thing.
The usual, sir.
Please.
So Sologenic, Zinfin, and a few others. We'll get into that on the next show.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to look at them. We're going to dig in. We are going to Dig in.
Digging. Okay, and that's all I have.
We're gonna look for some switches.
Great to be back together. I mean, we've been
It
solo
is.
shows for a while, so
It was great. Awesome.
All right, guys.
Fantastic.
guys, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. We still post short video clips throughout the week that you can see that post at various times. But thank you guys for your support. Smartest people in the cryptocurrency. You see the kind of comments on there. There's a whole show going on there in itself. But thank you for your support. Thank you for staying to the end with us, which we always appreciate too. You guys hanging out with us. That's all we have for tonight, but stay tuned. We love your input, and we do read all comments. So if you want to make a comment, if you're watching the replay, make a comment. By the way, I think 75% of our views come from the replay. So if you're watching that, we read all comments, and I think we might not always respond, but a lot of times we do. We engage in the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mostly it's good. It's not too much bad, but every once in a while there's a lot of funny comments. But
lots.
That's all I have.
Check you guys out on the next one.
Chip and Jeff. Ow!
Ow.
See you guys.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.